I just found this song. I'm obsessed. It's Feeling This Good, Never Felt So Great. And it's a jam. So, anyways, as you're coming on, say hi. Today I want to talk about this fear of disappointment because, I thought I was doing good. Tell me you can't relate to this. With the breakup and transitioning and pivoting the brand and pivoting the business. Hey, Ben! And making big, bold moves, right? Like putting, quote unquote, 2 feet in. But if I actually looked at it and what I did yesterday, right? Like I took the entire day to be like, what blocks are coming up for me right now? What am I being protected from? What is my nervous system trying to protect me from? And I had this whole epiphany, and I realize in my communities within either in the masterminds or within our groups or on social media, like so many of us are going through this void, this stagnant period, this what am I doing kind of gray area. And so if that is you, this is what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to be talking about my revelations. I'm going to be talking about the science, why this happens, and the fear of disappointment and how this protects us. And then I'm going to give you 4 things that you can actually start to utilize. So if you're feeling the pull, please share this with someone. This is a 2-way conversation. I love when we hang out and you ask your questions, and this is kind of just like a riff session because whenever I have a spare hour or a spare moment, I love to come on here and hang out with you guys. So let's keep it entertaining. So I'd love to know, one, if you see me looking down, it's because I don't have my big ring today, so I can't really see all these little things, but I would love to know where you're at right now. What is something you are navigating in this moment, and how are you feeling about that, right? Like I said, I'm navigating, although this was about 2 months ago, I'm navigating a breakup in the midst of pivoting a business, in the midst of moving, in the midst of wanting to scale to multiple 6 figures. Like there's a lot going on, right? So yesterday when I was sitting down, I was like, okay, so what are the feelings that are coming through on this? Like what is this void protecting me from? Because that's all it is. When we are stuck, either we haven't learned our lesson yet for that moment, our nervous system doesn't feel safe yet, or it's our upper limiting. There might be some other reasons too, but like life is too busy and life actually happens. But like those are the 3 things that usually what I've seen with my clients or myself. The little puppers over there. Yeah, I would say a breakup, however, it was around 3 or 4 months back. Oh, Ben, I didn't know that. Sending you my hugs. But breakups are a trauma, right? So I know this word trauma doesn't sit with a lot of people well because we think of big T trauma. We think of addictions. We think of loss. We think of, big events, sexual assaults, things of that nature, domestic violence. But breakups are a trauma. It gets stored in our body. Financial loss is a trauma. It gets stored in our body. Friendship breakups, that gets stored in our body. Getting yelled at when we were kids about not getting a toy and not being worthy because we haven't behaved well, that is trauma, right? And so this word trauma, it might not relate to you in that word, so let's play around with it. States of arousal, upper limiting, self-sabotage, trigger, trauma responses, roadblocks. Trauma is just our body being stored in self-protection. So my big revelation yesterday was I am protecting myself from manifesting. I am a wizard. It's honestly bananas how good I am at manifesting, like what I desire to come. So when I was back in Thailand, so I moved to America about 1.5 years ago, almost coming up in 2 years. I have lunch on my lips. What's up? I was I kept sitting in meditation. I was looking at buying a house down in Morgan. Hi, my dear. I was looking at buying a house down on the islands, and this guy had kept coming into my manifestations he had this like anchor tattoo on his arm. He was in America. It was, I had been talking with my friends, being like, I want to meet someone that can fly me to New York so I can go see my friends, because that's where we were all going to meet up. I had been telling my assistant, I kept getting this pull to move to Texas, even though I had never been there since college. Like all of these things kept coming up in conversation, and they're all written down in my journal, and there's things of that nature. So I had this written down. Finally, the pull got to be so intense that I was like, fuck it. What does life really mean? Like, beyond just financial success, what does it really mean if I don't have the relationship, if I'm not, connected to my family and I only see them once a year and they're 26 hours away? Like, what does it all mean? Right? So I packed everything up and booked a ticket and left 3 weeks later. I'm very quick on the way that I do things. Like, if I feel it, I'm out. So 3 weeks later, I move home. I settle 3 weeks after that, so 6 weeks in total. Little puppers over here is getting cute and ready for sleep. Look at him. 3 weeks after that, I meet the man with the anchor tattoo who had just got transferred for work to Texas and asked if I wanted to come with, who happened to be a pilot from New York so he could fly me anywhere because of flight benefits. I kid you not. So I was like, holy fuck, Laura, you're a wizard. Like, you are, wow, good. But I then didn't realize until literally yesterday where I'm like, oh, like, I'm good. I'm successful in this manifestation. I got what I want, so therefore I'm going to stop. Like, I have these visions, right? Like, cerebrally, I have this vision. I have this blueprint of what I want my life to be. But I no longer was feeling it like how I know manifestation to be. I was no longer feeling it how I now feel about, like, multiple six figures and where our brand is going and all the things that we're doing. Like, I wasn't tapping into that. I was just cerebrally being like, yeah, I want a trauma-focused business, but I wasn't actually pivoting on that. Like, it took me a solid year and a half to actually pivot my business when I've been wanting to do this for so long. I wanted this type of home. I wanted these types of things, but I wasn't actually doing anything. Why? Because I was scared. I was scared of getting disappointed. And then this breakup happened, right? My picture perfect reality. And I remember going back to my journals I went back to my journals and I'm looking and I remember whispering in prayer, being like, if it's not this, something better. If it's not this, then it's something better. And so when this rupture happened, I didn't know, but my body went into self-protection. My body went into, oh my God, we loved so deeply and we manifested so hard and we made something so beautiful and look how it turned out. Let's protect. Let's maybe manifest, but not so boldly. Let's maybe put 2 feet in them. Let's put 1 foot in, but not 2 feet. And I got very self-protective. And this is what our nervous system does. This is how glorious it is when we take the intentional time to look at the pattern, question what it's protecting us from, and then start to reprogram. Because now our ego is aware of it. Right? And so our conscious thinking brain can start to actually reprogram this kind of thought process. So for me, where I'm like, I want the quantum leaps, I want all these kind of things, like, this vision of what I want my house to look like, the one that I'm looking for right now, the way that I want my dog to be, and like my future pet, like my future relationships, like all these kind of things are now flooding through because now it's part of my awareness. So for someone that is stuck in this void, right? So whether maybe it's not a rupture of a relationship, but I feel like that's a lot of what's happening right now. Like, Melissa, I feel like ruptures in relationships are endings, or these like death, birth, death cycles, or birth, death, birth cycles, and things of that nature are happening around a lot of people right now. And so if you're in that void where you have left what is no longer serving you, and you're like, okay, this pattern doesn't work, whether it was forced upon you or not, you left it, right? So for example, me leaving that relationship wasn't my choice, but when someone wants to leave, you go, okay, fine. If it's not this, it's something better. To then be in this void of like, I have this vision of my life. I have this blueprint. I have this thing that I truly fucking want. I want it so badly. And I'm not there yet. What the fuck? What the fuck is this void? And it's the frustration, and it's the shame, and it's the annoyance, and then it comes from the space of like need and lack, and the universe doesn't fuck with that shit. Neither does God. So I don't know if anyone here is God forward, but I am. So God doesn't do needy. Universe does not do needy or lack, right? So we have to do that personal, intentional, devotional work, which is what I'm talking about, what happened last night. So if you're sitting in that void, this is what I invite you to do. And sometimes we want to not look at it because it's like, well, then I'll be disappointed. Like, I don't want to try so hard because then I'm going to get disappointed again, right? Like for me, I don't want to do all of the manifesting things that I was doing because look at how it turned out. I got dumped in a city I don't, like all these kind of things. And then the fear comes in the set point, and that's where our nervous system set point gets set at, and it gets to be scary. And so when you're looking at these things, there's 4 things that I want to walk you through, right? This is 1, explaining what our reticular activating system is. Our brain is constantly taking in information, right? Like we take in 11 million things per second. It filters through. Our RAS gets 8 million of that, and then we actually only get 30% of that put into our brain based off of our beliefs already, right? So if I'm looking at manifestation doesn't work because my heart got broken. Look at how that works. The guy with the anchor tattoo broke my heart. How can that make sense, right? And even though I'm not cognitively aware of that, my body is feeling unsafe in that. And so my brain is going to be scanning for things that are like, well, this maybe just isn't the arena that you're supposed to be sitting in, or maybe this isn't what the plan is supposed to be, and maybe we should just avoid this stuff, and we should start seeking out these other belief systems, like the hustle, like the strategy, like the masculine, all these kind of things, which I catch my brain fucking doing. I catch it. And this is to say, like, just because we know this work doesn't mean it doesn't come up and life is all hunky-dory all the time. It's just we perfect it. Every time it starts to come through, every time something new comes into the picture, you're like, oh, I noticed that now. Let me sit for a day and reprogram this and come out on the other side and come out in these, like, this is the work of the Unbreakably Bold, right? It's not that we become avoidant of triggers and trauma. It's just we have the tools to work through it, right? So when we're looking at the RAS symptoms system and we see what we're starting to look at, we're getting a little bit more negative, we're getting a little bit more anxious. We notice we're being a little bit more detached and like jumpy, or, you know, avoiding these tasks, or not wanting to see people, or feeling socially anxious, or not wanting to show up live on camera, or not wanting to do the work that we know will get us to the arena that we want to be in. What is going on here? Right? So this is where you go through the 4-step process of first looking at the pattern. What is the pattern? This is the symptom of the protection, right? So our nervous system is just protecting us from not wanting to be disappointed, not wanting us to feel fear. So we come up with excuses. We come up with avoidance tendencies. We come up with tools. Like a client of mine, she does, when it kept coming up in her way, it was she would get really tired around the time that she's supposed to sit down and do work. And she'd be like, okay, now time to do a nap. And her body would just like shut down. And she just thought it was like this adrenal thing and all this kind of stuff. But really it was the subconscious being like, we don't actually want to put 2 feet in. So let's be tired now. Or other ones being like, she just was staying busy all the time. So there wasn't actually time to work and do the things like create the events that she wanted to do, or, reach out for public speaking engagements, or spending time networking. It was like, well, I don't have time. And it's like, no, we create time for the things that matter. So these are different kind of things where our body is going to start to show symptoms. So we have to look a little bit deeper and go, so what is this protecting me from? What am I being protected from here? And when we start to look at what we're being protected from, we can start to pattern interrupt that, being like, okay, right? So for example, for me, noticing that the fear is disappointment and manifestation and putting the work in on that. So the pattern interrupt is we're going to sit down and we're actually going to start to manifest in the morning. We're going to wake up and we're going to meditate. We're going to get back into our spirituality. We're going to be in the vibes for this. And when we want to pull away, we come back in. We notice when that's happening. So it's like nope, we're doing something different now. And then you want to replace that to create new evidence. So now it's purposefully scanning to see where in your life is this actually working out for you. The new pattern that you're trying to replace it with. Where is this happening? Business things, networking, connecting, people of interest, interviews, wealth, relationships, good relationships, men. Like one of these things when I started to do this around my relationships is I would intentionally watch like pattern interrupt and things of that nature. And then I would go and I'd watch romance movies to like change the way that my brain would work around love and things of that nature. And so now it's really sitting in this void and looking at, okay, so if my fear is disappointment and I want to replace and create new evidence, for me, my evidence would be sitting down and meditating and putting things into place. So right now, looking at apartments. Where am I finding the most perfect apartment? Am I putting this into place? Am I noticing that right now is actually not that bad? Like, I have the most dreamiest apartment, staying with my best friend, I have the most space, I start my days in a certain way. Like, where can we start to actively seek out this good, right? And as we're starting to replace this and create the new belief, our reticular activating system starts to swap what it seeks. So no longer are we looking for the fact that things aren't working, we're now looking for things that are working, which changes the way that your brain fires and wires, which regulates your nervous system to call in the safety that is now new. Does that make sense? Let me know. So the last part is recognize and celebrate the fact that you're doing the work, because we often just like move to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, and we get lost inside of that. So that would be the 4 steps that I would be looking at. I'd be understanding how my brain works. I'd be understanding how the reticular activating system looks. And I'd be really taking the space to intentionally shift what I do, who I'm becoming, how I want to tell the narrative, because you're so strong. Like, I know you have that fire inside of you, that belief system, that idea of something that wants to come to life, and that fear of disappointment of it not working out is so fucking valid. It's so valid, right? But not doing anything about it when you're now aware of it is where we get stuck. That for me, that's like giving up and playing small. And I know you are not here to play small. I know you're here because you have the fire inside of you. That's what the women in my world do. Right? The women in my world are here to make a fucking movement. They're here to be heart-centered leaders, whether that's in business or in their household. They're here to regulate, to slay shame, to shift their narrative, to create wealth in such different ways that it shifts. And so if you're feeling like you're trapped by the fear of disappointment, go through these 4 steps again. Start to integrate them. Notice the pattern. Notice where you can interrupt it. Notice where you can replace it. And then celebrate the fact that you're doing it. And this will shift how your brain fires and wires. Hello. How are you? And that's what we have for today, my friends. So if this resonates with you, if you know someone that is stuck in a void and they're kind of sitting in that gray area and they're feeling like, oh, what the fuck? Share this with them. Share this with them, because this is how we start the conversations. This is how we, shed light on some things that we can't really find the words for sometimes, or we don't want to admit that we are stuck in a void and that there's shame there and we don't really have a solution to get out of it and all that kind of stuff. So if you know someone, or that is you, let me know how this landed for you. And if you want to jump in, if you're ready to put 2 feet in on reprogramming your nervous system and shifting your narrative from the inside out, from nutrition level to the basics, to actually healing trauma and creating that magnetism, that shine, that being seen, that being 2 feet in on your life, that's where Unbreakably Bold comes in. And we start that July 4th. So if you want to get in on that, just message me. And I'm so happy to send you the link. And we have the summer fiesta. So that is 4 programs, 4 plus hot seat coaching for the price of 1. So whichever one you want to jump into, I'm happy to invite you to, but just opening up the conversation there. So I love you, my friends, and I will see you on the other side. Bye.